Jard had never been the kind of man to expect adventure. His life in the colony was ordinary, filled with the hum of machinery, the smell of oil, and the steady rhythm of tools against metal. Every day was predictable, every night quiet. He liked it that way. Predictable meant safe, and safe meant he could breathe without fear. But that day, as he wiped his hands on a rag and prepared for another routine repair job, the sound of a distant crash shattered the calm. It wasn't just any crash. The ground trembled under his feet as a freighter, massive and unfamiliar, fell from the sky. Smoke curled upward, painting the horizon in shades of orange and gray. Jard's heart skipped a beat. The colony had strict rules. No human dared to approach a crashed alien vessel. It was dangerous, unpredictable, and likely illegal. Yet something inside him stirred. Curiosity, perhaps, or the strange pull of the unknown. Within moments, he grabbed his tools and ran toward the wreckage. When he arrived, the sight made him pause. The ship was unlike anything he had ever seen. Its hull shimmered with colors that seemed alive, constantly shifting with every angle of light. Panels hung loose, wires sparking faintly, and the metal groaned under its own weight. But what froze him in place wasn't the damage, it was her. She was seated in the cockpit, tall and elegant, her form smooth and almost translucent, like liquid crystal shaped into a humanoid figure. Her eyes glowed faintly like distant stars caught in a storm, and they locked onto his as if she had been expecting him. Jard felt a strange warmth crawl up his spine. She wasn't human, but she didn't feel hostile. There was a quiet intelligence in her gaze, a depth that seemed to understand more than words ever could. "Are you alive?" Jard asked, his voice trembling slightly, more from awe than fear. Her lips didn't move, yet he heard her answer inside his head. It wasn't a voice he could hear with his ears, but it was clear, gentle, and commanding all at once. "Yes, and you are curious." Jard swallowed hard. He had fixed broken engines, rewired crashed shuttles, and patched up colony drones, but he had never encountered anything like this. She was alive, thinking, aware, and she seemed to be measuring him, understanding his very thoughts. The colony rules screamed at him to step back, to call for help, to stay safe. But the pull of her presence was irresistible. With trembling hands, he approached the ship, tools clanking softly against his belt. Every step toward her felt like a step into the unknown, into a story he had never imagined for himself. When he finally reached the side of the ship, she extended a slender hand toward a damaged panel. Sparks danced as her fingers brushed it lightly. The metal responded, folding and clicking as if it recognized her touch. Jard's jaw fell open. She wasn't just a pilot, she was connected to her ship in ways he could barely comprehend. The repair wasn't just mechanical, it was alive, almost magical. "I can fix this," Jard said, trying to steady his voice. I think I can make it work again." Her eyes softened. A small, almost imperceptible nod gave him permission. And with that, the line between human and alien, curiosity and destiny began to blur. Hours passed. Jard worked tirelessly, his hands greasy, his clothes smeared with soot, but he never looked away from her. She floated beside him, watching every movement, sometimes touching the ship with a delicate grace that made metal bend to her will. There was no rush, no fear, only a quiet understanding between them. Every glance she cast at him carried weight, a mixture of hope and longing he couldn't yet name. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in streaks of pink and gold, Jard realized something impossible. He didn't just want to fix her ship. He wanted to understand her. He wanted to be near her. And somehow he felt that she wanted the same. For the first time in his life, Jard understood that ordinary could be broken, that the world could shift in a heartbeat, and that adventure sometimes came wrapped in a shimmer of alien light, waiting for someone brave enough to reach out. And so, under the dying glow of the twin suns, a human and an alien began a story neither of them could have predicted, a story that would change both their lives forever. The next morning, the colony awoke to whispers. A human had been seen near the crash site, a lone figure amidst the twisted metal and strange shimmer of an alien ship. Jard ignored the rumors. The world around him had grown smaller. His focus was only on the ship and on her. She had changed overnight. The shimmer of her form was softer now, her movements slower and deliberate, almost as if she was trying to understand him as much as he was trying to understand her. When Jard approached, she turned her head, tilting it curiously. For a moment, the hum of machinery and the rustle of the morning wind disappeared. He could feel her awareness brushing against his mind, delicate and probing, like a tide gently touching the shore. I don't even know your name," Jard admitted, brushing sweat from his brow. Her eyes glimmered. For the first time, she moved closer, her hand hovering over the console before brushing against his arm. It was the touch, but it sent warmth shooting through his chest. He realized then that this wasn't just repair work. She was testing him, connecting to him, and inexplicably he welcomed it. Days passed as they worked together. She didn't speak in words, but Jard learned to read the rhythm of her gestures, the tiny shifts of light across her skin, the soft hums that resonated in the ship's frame. It was communication unlike anything he had known. Every adjustment he made, every spark of the welding torch, seemed to excite her in ways he could feel through the air around them. He taught her human tools, ways to stabilize circuits and reinforce panels. In return, she showed him things he had never imagined, metal that could bend like water, energy that flowed through conduits without wires, systems that responded to thought rather than touch. Jard's mind raced, exhilarated, exhausted, but alive in ways he couldn't explain. And then came the night when it happened. A sudden surge of power lit the cockpit, the ship trembling as if it were alive and frightened. Jard's hands froze on the controls, and he felt her presence like a wave, urgent and intense. She reached out, her hand resting on his shoulder, and in that instant something shifted. It wasn't fear. It wasn't curiosity. It was connection, an invisible thread tying their awareness together. He looked into her eyes and saw vulnerability, a quiet trust he hadn't expected. She needed him, yes, but it wasn't just that. He wanted her too, though he barely understood why. Every instinct in his body screamed to protect her, to reach for her, to be near her in ways that went beyond mechanics or duty. "You trust me?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. She tilted her head, the faintest glow brightening in her eyes. Yes, the thought came, gentle but certain. And for the first time, Jard felt the terrifying, exhilarating weight of being chosen, not by chance but by her. But with connection came doubt. The colony elders would never approve of this bond. They would see him as reckless, foolish, or worse. And she, as rare as she was, would be vulnerable if anyone learned of their growing trust. Jard's mind raced, and yet he couldn't step away. He wanted her to see him not as a human mechanic, not as a visitor in her world, but as someone who could stand with her. Late that night, after the hum of machines had quieted, Jard found himself leaning against the ship's hull, staring up at the stars. She appeared beside him, silent but present. No words were exchanged, yet he felt her feelings as clearly as if they had spoken aloud. Loneliness, hope, curiosity, and a quiet longing, all intertwined with his own emotions, creating a strange, electric harmony. "You're different," he murmured. "Not just your ship, you." She reached out again, brushing the back of his hand with hers, and he felt a spark, neither mechanical nor accidental, but something more profound. Something that made him realize this was no ordinary repair job. This was the beginning of a connection that neither time nor distance could sever. And as the night sky stretched above them, full of alien stars and endless possibility, Jard knew one undeniable truth. He wasn't just fixing her ship. He was becoming part of her world. And for the first time, he didn't want to return to the ordinary life he had known. For the first few days, everything seemed calm. Jard and the alien woman had settled into a rhythm, repairing the ship and learning each other's silent language. Yet the world outside the crash site didn't forget so easily. The colony elders were watching, their eyes sharp and unforgiving. Rumors swirled, whispering of forbidden contact, of a human meddling with powers beyond his comprehension. Jard tried to ignore it. He had always lived quietly, but now quiet didn't feel possible. Late one evening, as the twin suns dipped behind jagged cliffs, a sharp, mechanical hum cut through the air. Jard froze, the sensation crawling up his spine. She, too, stiffened, her glowing eyes scanning the horizon. A patrol drone appeared, hovering silently, its sensors sweeping over the wreckage. He knew immediately, if they discovered her, everything could be lost. "We need to hide her," Jard said, urgency cracking his voice. He didn't wait for a response. Together, they moved quickly. She extended her hand to the ship's controls, her form shimmering as the hull responded, panels folding inward, energy shielding flickering to life. Jard's heart pounded. Every movement was delicate, every decision critical. The drone hovered closer, scanning beams cutting through the dusk. Jard held his breath, praying it wouldn't detect them. She moved beside him, her presence a steadying force. Even without words, he felt her determination, her silent plea for him to be brave. It was the first time he understood the depth of her reliance on him, not just for repair or companionship, but for survival. Hours passed in tense silence. Every hum of the drone, every shadow on the cliff face made Jard's stomach twist. The alien woman had never felt fear like this before, or at least never shown it. But now he could see the vulnerability in her posture, the slight hesitation in her movements. She needed him to be steady, to act, to lead. And for the first time, he felt the full weight of responsibility. When the drone finally moved on, leaving the area silent and empty once more, Jard exhaled slowly. He looked at her, expecting relief, but instead he saw a mixture of gratitude and a quiet, almost human-like concern. She had trusted him, and he had not failed, yet both knew the danger was far from over. That night around a small fire near the crash site, Jard struggled to speak. "They'll come back," he said, voice low, "and next time it won't be easy." She sat beside him, her form pulsating softly with an energy that seemed almost alive. He reached for her hand, hesitant, unsure if the contact would be welcomed. She held it without hesitation. "You don't have to face them alone," he whispered. Her eyes shimmered, reflecting the firelight and something deeper, trust, hope, and an unspoken bond that was growing stronger with every passing moment. Jard realized something profound. Their connection wasn't just emotional or intellectual, it was survival. Without each other, neither would make it through what was coming. The next morning, they worked faster, repairing the ship with renewed urgency. Every bolt he tightened, every circuit she stabilized was a step closer to safety. Yet with every success, Jard could feel the colony's scrutiny tightening around them like an invisible net. He knew he couldn't hide forever, and he couldn't abandon her. He caught himself watching her often, noticing the way her form caught the light, how her eyes reflected emotion like water mirrors the sky. It wasn't just fascination anymore. It was something deeper, a connection forged in fear, trust, and shared struggle. By the time the sun set again, Jard made a silent promise. He would protect her, not just from the colony, but from the dangers of the universe itself. He didn't fully understand what that promise meant yet, but he knew it was bigger than anything he had ever done. Bigger than any repair job, bigger than any ordinary life he had lived. And she, standing beside him, luminous and enigmatic, seemed to understand. Not with words, but with the certainty of her gaze, the steadying pressure of her hand on his arm, and the quiet pulse of life that connected them both. For the first time, Jard realized that this was no longer just about fixing a ship. It was about trust, loyalty, and a bond that could withstand the scrutiny of the stars themselves. And whatever the colony or the universe threw at them next, he would face it, not as a human alone, but as her companion, chosen and needed in ways he had never imagined. The night after the patrol had left, silence fell over the crash site. Jard couldn't sleep. His mind raced with thoughts of the colony, the drones, and the alien woman beside him. He had repaired countless machines, but he had never felt responsible for someone in this way before. She wasn't just a ship or a vessel to fix. She was alive, thinking, feeling. And he realized, with a mixture of awe and fear, that he had come to care for her more deeply than he could explain. She floated silently near the cockpit, her glow dimmed to a calm, gentle light. Jard approached cautiously, unsure how to begin. Words felt inadequate, clumsy against the connection they shared. Finally, he asked, Who are you really?" For a moment, she didn't respond. Then slowly, she extended her hand, her form shimmering as she projected images into his mind, scenes of distant stars, ancient planets, and cities built from light. Jard gasped, overwhelmed. He had glimpsed space before, but never like this. Never had he seen entire worlds, entire civilizations, through the eyes of another being. "I am one of few left," her thought came, echoing in his mind with a strange clarity. "My people are scattered, rare. We travel, we survive, and we choose carefully those who share our lives. I did not choose lightly, human." Jard's hands trembled. "Choose me," he whispered, barely believing it. Yes, the thought pulsed through him like electricity, warm and insistent. "Your presence anchors me. You are different, brave, compassionate, alive." The weight of her words hit him like a tidal wave. She wasn't just seeking help to repair her ship. She was offering herself in trust, in bond. Her species, rare and precious, did not form such attachments lightly. To be chosen was an honor and a responsibility. I don't know if I'm worthy, Jard admitted, his voice breaking. I'm just human, ordinary, I fix machines, I do, he faltered, unable to put into words the flood of emotions he felt. Her hand brushed against his arm, and suddenly the words were unnecessary. He felt her confidence, her reliance, and the quiet assurance that he could rise to the moment if he chose to. She wasn't asking for perfection. She was asking for presence, for commitment, for someone who could be steady in the storms ahead. Jard swallowed hard, his chest tightening. He had never imagined this life. He had never imagined responsibility like this, and yet, as he looked into her glowing eyes, he knew he couldn't turn away. Not now, not ever. The revelation brought clarity and fear together in equal measure. He realized the stakes were higher than he had known. The colony's scrutiny, the patrol drones, even the vast dangers of space, all of it now mattered more because she mattered. She wasn't just a ship to repair or a being to study. She was someone whose existence now intertwined with his own. Hours passed as they stayed near the cockpit, communicating without words, learning each other's rhythms and thoughts. Jard realized that his hands, which had always been steady with machines, now trembled with the weight of emotion. He wanted to protect her. He wanted to be worthy of the trust she had placed in him. And he realized that this bond was no fleeting connection. It was profound, irrevocable, and life-changing. When the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, Jard finally spoke again. I don't fully understand your world or your people, but I will do whatever I can. I'll stay, I'll fight, I'll be there. Her glow pulsed brighter, a silent affirmation of his words. She had revealed herself, her past, and her rare need for connection. In return, he had offered his promise, imperfect but genuine. For the first time, the dangers of the universe felt manageable, not because they were less threatening, but because they would face them together. She had shown him her world, and he had accepted it. And in that acceptance, something shifted. Fear was replaced by determination. Uncertainty was replaced by purpose. Jard understood that this moment, the revelation, the choice, the trust, was only the beginning. The universe was vast and threats would come, but he would not face them alone. He had been chosen, and in choosing, he had chosen in return. And as they prepared to continue repairing the ship, the bond between human and alien, stronger than any metal, brighter than any star, and more enduring than any danger the universe could send their way. The following days were tense. Jard and the alien woman worked tirelessly, repairing the ship, reinforcing the hull, and stabilizing its energy cores. Every spark of the welding torch and every adjustment of the control panels carried new weight. It wasn't just about finishing repairs anymore. It was about survival. The patrol drones had not forgotten, and the colony's scrutiny lingered like an invisible shadow. One morning, a sharp, mechanical whistle tore through the calm. Jard looked up to see several patrol drones descending from the cliffs above. Their scanning beams swept across the wreckage, locking onto the shimmer of her hull. Panic surged, but he forced himself to stay calm. She looked at him, her luminous eyes wide with unspoken fear. For the first time, Jard understood that their survival depended not only on speed, but on ingenuity. "Follow my lead," he whispered. She nodded, her body pulsing softly with her alien energy. Together they moved with precision, Jard guiding her hands as they manipulated panels and wires. The ship seemed to respond to their combined effort, energy flowing in currents they could both feel. Sparks danced, and a shield flickered to life, bending the scanning beams around them like water around a stone. The drones hovered closer, sensing something amiss. Jard's pulse raced. He remembered every repair trick he had ever learned, every improvisation he had ever performed in the colony's workshops. This was no longer about machines. It was about instinct, courage, and creativity under pressure. "On my mark," he said, "now." With a coordinated effort, they released a pulse of energy from the ship's core, sending the drones into a confused spiral. The patrols faltered, their sensors scrambling to recalibrate. Jard held his breath, praying their temporary shield would hold long enough. She reached out to the ship's control console, her energy synchronizing with his. Together, they created a surge that pushed the drones back, forcing them to retreat to higher ground. When the threat had passed, Jard slumped against the hull, exhausted. She floated near him, her glow dimming to a gentle, comforting light. For the first time, he allowed himself to feel relief, not just for the moment, but for the bond that had carried them through it. She hovered closer, brushing against his arm, and he felt the quiet acknowledgement of trust between them. You saved me," she communicated, her presence pulsing warmly. "No," he replied softly. "We saved each other." For the next several days, their routine continued under a tense, watchful silence. But the crisis had changed something fundamental. Jard realized that their connection was no longer a fragile trust. It was a lifeline. They had faced danger together and survived. Each had proven to the other that presence mattered more than skill, courage more than experience. And in the quiet moments, he found himself watching her more closely. The way her form reflected light, the subtle hum that emanated from her body, the depth in her eyes, it was hypnotic. He wanted to know every detail, to understand her world as she had begun to understand his. He wanted to be worthy of the trust she had given him, and the thought sent a warmth through his chest he could not ignore. One evening, as the twin suns dipped behind distant peaks, she extended her hand to him. He took it without hesitation, feeling the connection pulse between them. He realized that trust wasn't built in words alone, nor in shared danger. It was built in moments like this, when two beings, different yet alike, relied on one another for life itself. Jard knew the universe was vast, full of unknown dangers and challenges. Yet, for the first time, he didn't feel small or powerless. He had the alien woman beside him, and together they had proven that courage, creativity, and trust could overcome almost anything. The repaired panels gleamed in the fading sunlight, the energy cores humming steadily. Their combined effort had transformed the ship from a wreck into a vessel capable of flight. But more than that, Jard understood that the real repair had been within himself. He was no longer just a mechanic. He was a protector, a partner, and someone capable of facing the universe, not alone, but with her. And as the first stars began to appear in the sky, he looked at her glowing form and knew that whatever the galaxy threw at them next, they would face it together. Their bond had been forged in fire and tension, and it would not be broken easily. After the drones had retreated and the ship was stabilized, a quiet settled over the crash site. The tension of constant danger lifted, but Jard could feel something new stirring, a deeper, unspoken connection between him and the alien woman. They no longer just relied on each other for survival. They were beginning to understand each other's presence in ways words could never capture. That evening, as the twin suns dipped low, Jard sat near the cockpit, brushing his hands over the tools that had become familiar extensions of himself. She floated nearby, her luminous form pulsing softly, casting gentle light on the ground. For the first time, Jard felt an emotion he had never named before, something stronger than curiosity, more compelling than admiration. He wanted to protect her, yes, but he also wanted to be near her, to understand her, to share this vast universe together. She drifted closer, her hand hovering near his. It was a simple gesture, but it carried weight. He felt her thoughts brushing against his, subtle and warm, a question that went beyond words. "Will you stay with me?" Jard's breath caught. He had never considered such a possibility before, yet in that moment it felt inevitable. I want to," he whispered, unsure if she would understand his hesitation or even his fear. Her glow brightened, an almost shy affirmation. She moved closer, letting her hand rest lightly on his arm. The touch was electric, yet comforting, a signal that she trusted him, that she needed him as much as he now needed her. For the first time, he understood the true depth of her vulnerability. She had faced the universe alone for so long, and now she was offering a bond, fragile yet unbreakable, to a human she barely knew. As night fell and the stars began to glimmer above, Jard and she worked in tandem, fine-tuning the ship's systems. But the work became secondary to the quiet intimacy of shared presence. Every glance, every small gesture carried meaning. Every adjustment of a panel or circuit was accompanied by unspoken trust and understanding. Jard realized that he didn't just want to repair her ship. He wanted to be part of her world, to be someone she could rely on, someone who could stand beside her against the dangers they both knew were coming. Hours passed, and exhaustion settled into their bones, but neither moved away. She floated close, her head tilting slightly as she observed him. Jard felt her thoughts ripple through him again, curiosity, reassurance, and something deeper, a longing that mirrored his own. It was as if the universe had narrowed to just the two of them, connected by invisible threads that neither understood fully but both felt completely. Finally, Jard spoke, his voice quiet but steady. "I don't know what comes next, or if I'm ready for it, but I do know this: I'll stay with you. Whatever the universe throws at us, I'll face it with you." Her glow pulsed brighter, a rhythmic affirmation of his words. She leaned closer, and Jard felt the warmth of her energy envelop him. It was more than attraction. It was recognition, acceptance, and the promise of companionship in a vast, indifferent galaxy. In that moment, the dangers of the colony, the drones, and the unknown threats of space seemed distant. What mattered was the bond forming between them, a bond forged in fire, fear, and trust. It was raw, emotional, and undeniable. Jard felt a courage he had never known before. He wasn't just a human mechanic anymore. He was her companion, chosen and needed, and for the first time he felt worthy of something greater than himself. As dawn approached, painting the sky in soft oranges and blues, Jard realized the truth. This bond was no longer fragile or tentative. It had been tested, survived danger, and grown stronger in the process. Whatever the universe had planned, he and she would face it together. And in that union he found purpose, courage, and the sense that he was no longer alone in the vastness of space. For the first time in his life, Jard understood that love, trust, and connection were as vital as courage and ingenuity. And as she hovered close, her eyes glowing softly, he knew that their journey was only beginning. But together, nothing could break the bond they had forged. The ship hummed steadily now, fully repaired, every panel secured, every energy core stabilized. Jard ran his hands along the controls one last time, feeling the rhythm of a vessel that had once been broken but now pulsed with life. He looked at her, luminous and calm, yet there was a fire in her eyes, a determination, a confidence born from survival and trust. She had chosen him, and now the universe itself seemed to pause, waiting for their next move. The colony lay far behind, its laws, fears, and whispers meaningless compared to the vastness of space ahead. The patrol drones had retreated, but the knowledge of danger lingered. Jard knew that leaving would not be simple. Yet, as he gazed at her, he understood that they had already passed a point of no return. Their bond was forged, tested, and unbreakable. She extended her hand toward him. This time, it wasn't just a gesture of trust. It was an invitation, a promise, a call to a life neither of them could have imagined alone. Jard took it without hesitation. His heart pounded as he felt her energy flow into him, a warmth and strength that grounded him, connected him, made him part of something far greater than himself. "We fly?" he asked, voice tight with emotion, with anticipation, with fear of what leaving might mean. "Yes," she responded, not in words but in a pulse that traveled through the air, through the ship, through him. With a deep breath, Jard settled into the pilot's seat, feeling the ship vibrate beneath him, alive and aware. She hovered close, her form a radiant halo beside him. He reached out, their hands brushing, and for a moment the universe seemed to shrink, leaving only the two of them and the hum of a repaired ship ready for flight. The engines roared to life, low and steady at first, then stronger, surging with power and promise. Lights danced across the panels as they lifted from the ground, rising above the cliffs and the colony that had once confined them. Jard looked at her, and in that glance no words were needed. They were partners now, bound not by law or convenience, but by choice, trust, and something far deeper. Stars stretched before them, countless and endless. Planets glimmered in the distance, each a world of possibility. Jard felt the weight of the unknown, but also the exhilaration of freedom. For the first time in his life, he was not merely a human among machines. He was part of something vast, alive, and extraordinary. She leaned close, her form brushing his shoulder. "We will explore. We will survive. Together." Her energy pulsed with certainty, and he felt it resonate deep within him, filling him with courage and hope. Jard smiled, a genuine, unguarded smile. "Together," he repeated, the word carrying all the meaning he could muster. All the doubt, fear, and uncertainty melted away, leaving only clarity and purpose. He had found his place, not just beside her, but in the infinite expanse of space. As they soared past the colony's atmosphere, leaving behind the world that had tried to limit them, Jard realized the magnitude of what had happened. He hadn't just repaired a ship. He had become part of a journey that transcended ordinary life. He had been chosen, and in choosing to accept her trust, he had discovered courage, love, and the extraordinary capacity of the human heart. The stars stretched into infinity ahead, each one a new challenge, a new adventure. Yet Jard no longer felt small, powerless, or ordinary. He had her by his side, and together they could face whatever the universe offered. The alien woman turned to him, her glowing eyes reflecting starlight, and for the first time, Jard understood fully. Humanity wasn't limited to one world, one colony, or one set of rules. Humanity could reach across the stars, through fear and danger, and create bonds strong enough to change worlds. And as the ship surged into the unknown, carrying both human and alien across the galaxy, Jard knew one undeniable truth. Life would never be ordinary again. Together, they would carve a path among the stars, their bond unbreakable, their journey just beginning. He took her hand firmly in his, and in that single gesture they both understood. The universe was theirs to explore, and nothing could ever separate them. The engines hummed, the stars gleamed, and a human and an alien soared together into the vast, endless night. A new beginning had begun.